What's up, guys? This was Sissy here on Never Stop. So what we about to do, you already know, wansee entertainment. So we about to get it started, and never mind. Hold.
What's the situation? A new analysis by CNN finds Biden holding a national lead over President Trump.
Y'all. I know it was gonna take that long. So I got a new holding camera for my phone, so I might have to use nothing else. Hold up, trying to do something before we get the video started. Hold up, y'all see this? This is for that. It's hard to press. Okay. So far so good. We about to react to this videos. Cool. Alright. My new
A few days ago, I went to a Macy's store with my mother and son to go check out some jewelry. While my mom was checking out jewelry, I noticed an old man around his 50s come near us. He was about 8 feet from us. At first, I thought he was just a random customer checking something out for his lady or something. Then, from the corner of my eye, I noticed he was just standing there without moving and looking at us. It made me feel uncomfortable, so I turned around, moving the stroller, which my toddler was in, because I didn't want him looking at my baby. I turned my eyes to look at him again, and I could see that he was just staring at me with a creepy look. He was staring at me and my baby. Then, all of a sudden, he grinned widely at us. The weirdest thing about him was that he was wearing women's shoes and a scarf, and also holding a dress in his hand. He opened his mouth and tried to say something. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could read his lips. I like you. I like your baby. I just thought the man was a weirdo. And then my mom also noticed that he was odd and creepy. He saw that my mom was glaring at him, so he walked away. But then he appeared on the opposite side of us and started staring at me again. This time, he pulled his phone out and made it seem like he was about to take a picture. He was staring at us and his eyes opened widely. He was smiling like a crazy psychopath. That was enough. I wanted to go up to him and tell him to get away from us, but I had my boy with me and didn't want anything to happen, so I chose to just get out of there. I told a lady who was working there what happened. She said that she would go take a look at him. A few minutes later, she came back and told us that he was a customer who has been reported before by other people. My mom asked, "Why hasn't he been kicked out then?" The lady said, "Well, because he hasn't threatened or hurt anyone, so the store doesn't have a good enough reason to kick him out." My mom and I were pissed off because obviously the man is just there to harass people. The lady then told us that he said something creepy to her and also made her uncomfortable. She told us that when she went to go ask him what he was up to, he told her that he went to the store to return a dress. He decided that he didn't like that he bought it for his lady. He told her with a smile, "Yeah, I need to change quickly. She's cold now." My mom and I instantly felt so creeped out, so we just left. What did that mean? Could he have been hiding a dead body back at his place? A few days later, and I feel relieved that the crazy guy didn't harm us. But I'm still wondering what he meant by, "She's cold now."
So what's the point trying to spend all your money for a dead person? And I mean a dead person. let me get that right, cause I really want to see entertainment. A man who's stuck into our house. You don't like when people stuck in your house. Oh.
This story happened in the summer of 2017 when I was 10 years old. My older brother and I had a babysitter, and she was around the age of 17. Since my mom was home on Tuesdays, the babysitter would come on the other weekdays. Most days when she babysat, we would go to the neighborhood pool, hang out, and eat lunch there. Then we went back home and my mom would arrive a bit later at around 5:30 in the evening. On one Thursday, the day was just an ordinary one and the babysitter came around 8 in the morning. A few hours later, we decided to head to the pool and eat lunch. We all got ready and headed out the door. As I used to be a little paranoid back then, every time I went outside, I made sure I locked the door and would immediately turn the doorknob and try to open it to make sure it was locked. The door was definitely locked, so we walked to the pool and swam for a while. Then we ate lunch and decided to head back to the house. When we got home, I pulled out the key from my bag, but I noticed that the door was a crack open. I pushed it and the door swung open. A little chill ran down my spine as I remembered that I made sure the door was locked before leaving. My babysitter had a frightened look on her face too. But my stupid brother thought nothing of it and just walked right in, so we followed him. About my house, when you walk into the house, to the right is an entryway to the living room, and straight ahead is a hallway to the kitchen. The stairs are to the right of the hallway, and you can see the upstairs railing from the entrance. We walked into the kitchen and set our stuff down, and I went to go lock the door. After I shut it, I turned back around to go back to the kitchen, but something caught my attention at the corner of my eye. Looking up at the railing, I could see the silhouette of someone crouched behind a tall, narrow floor fan. I looked a little closer, and I could see their eyes. They were wide open and were staring directly at me. I was frozen in fear and couldn't move. All I could do was stare back at them, not knowing if it was a man or woman. My babysitter called for me to come to the kitchen, and the figure slowly walked into a nearby room and disappeared. I ran into the kitchen, telling my babysitter and brother what I saw. At first, they didn't believe me, but then, all of a sudden, we were all silent as we heard slow footsteps creaking from upstairs. She quietly grabbed both her phone and a kitchen knife and ushered us to the back door. She slowly turned the doorknob and tried to not make any noise while opening the door. We made it to the backyard, and she was going to call 911 on her phone. But before she could, we heard a tapping sound coming from one of the windows on the second floor. So we all looked up, and then we saw him. He was a man, late 50s, short black hair, eyes still wide open, staring at us. He was pushing the blinds out of the way, so we saw his face very clearly. We screamed and started running to the gate on the side of the backyard. The babysitter dropped her phone while scared, so I picked it up and ran behind her. I dialed 911, told them our address, and explained to the operator what just happened. She said they would be there in a few minutes, told us to go to a nearby neighbor's house and stay there until the cops arrive. We rang a doorbell a few times, and one of our neighbors, who was retired, came outside. He let us in, and we explained what happened as we were looking out of the window. Then we saw 3 cop cars pulling up, and the cops were surrounding my home. 3 cops headed in through the front door and investigated our house. We went outside to tell them that we were okay, and the other police officers started questioning us. Soon, the cops came back after finding nothing and doing a thorough investigation. They told us it would be best to not stay home, as the person may come back. So the babysitter said we could go to her house, which is about a mile away. Just then, we heard our neighbors screaming from down the street. A few houses down, a policeman's car was set on fire and was smoking a lot. The cops spotted a man running past the corner down towards the end of the street. One officer took us to the babysitter's house, while the other 3 went after that man. We later found out that the man had gotten away, so he never got arrested. Our parents arrived home as they were contacted by the police and freaked out. Later that night, we came back to the house and we searched the whole place to see if anything was missing. A cash box that was stored in my parents' bedroom was missing, but we didn't report it since the man was never found. I have no idea who that was or how he opened our front door. I still feel uneasy sometimes when I'm home alone.
He look like he about to tie some kid up. I heard a piano playing in the basement. That sound.
My name is Kyla. This story is about a piano that was in my elementary school. When I was a kid, my friends and I used to record random videos in my school's basement. Most of the time, the basement's lights were off because hardly anyone went there. And the reason was that that place was scary and sometimes smelled really bad. The basement was completely dark. We slowly walked in the basement with our phone lights on. I was nervous, but my friends were already walking ahead of me, so I just followed them. We were a group of 5, so I felt like I shouldn't be scared since I was with them. My friend Michael was in the front since he was the bravest and also the one recording on his phone. I was in the very back and holding onto my friend Kate's shirt. There was a room just beside the basement's wall, and inside of it was a grand piano. Nothing else, only the piano. We went inside that room first. We were all quiet, and you could only hear our heavy breathing as we walked through the basement. But we didn't hear anything, and then, out of nowhere, Michael said, "Boring." It took us around 3 minutes to reach the end of the basement. Michael put his phone back in his pocket, and we all started walking back in the long basement. We finally returned to the main gate of our school and sat on a bench. Everyone was focused on Michael as he pulled out his phone and started playing the recording. It was quiet at first. And then, all that could be heard were our whispers as we tried to figure out whether or not we should continue with the recording. And then, all of our eyes widened when we heard a sound coming from what seemed like just beside the basement. We couldn't believe what we just heard, so we paused the video, rewinded it, and played it again. The sound came from the grand piano. It was playing a creepy song, and at that moment, Michael almost dropped his phone. We were all shocked and scared. We didn't say anything for a while. I'm 100% positive that we didn't hear that piano playing as we walked through the basement. It was definitely quiet. And the scariest thing was that the piano was still playing when Michael said, "Boring." The recording was around 3 minutes long, and when the recording was done playing, we were all speechless. This was many years ago, but to this day I still don't have an explanation for what happened. Maybe someone went to that room and played And why did we only hear it when we played the recording? I am still confused about that incident.
Okay, I think I get it. So I think the girl that the person be a starter the piano, I guess she did. I can't believe what the stranger did. Okay.
This happened in the middle of last year. At that time, I was at home with my boyfriend Dan watching TV. Dan was deeply concentrated on what the TV screen was showing.
I know this boy ain't gonna say boyfriend. Let me rewind it. Cause I feel like he just said boyfriend for some reason.
This happened in the middle of last year. At that time, I was at home with my boyfriend Dan watching TV. Dan was deeply concentrated on what the TV screen was showing, so I was about to start making a romantic atmosphere. But then I heard a knock at the door. I got pretty pissed off as it interrupted, but got up anyway and opened the door. We lived with one of our friends, so at the moment, I thought it would be my friend. But to my surprise, it was a man around the same age as me. He looked a little bit tired and was forcing a smile on his face.
Oh my God.
He was all sweating, and his eyes were red as if from crying. But it wasn't my business to ask. "Oh, hello," the stranger said with a wide smile, taking his hand out for me to shake. "Hi," I said, looking at his hand and back at him. "Can I use your bathroom, please?" he asked, still having this huge smile plastered on his face. Before I could say anything, though, Dan came behind me and told the guy that, indeed, he could.
Somebody ever ask you can they use, like, okay, I would see if there was like somebody in my house, can I use the bathroom? But if you just say, can I use your bathroom? It's plenty of houses and you asking for people to use a bathroom. Let y'all know that do not let nobody use y'all bathroom.
Use the bathroom. The man went in there, and Dan and I just went back to the couch and waited for him. Then I heard some sounds, like water pouring in the bathtub. After 10 minutes, I slowly started to get curious, as he didn't come out yet. I told Dan that I should check on him, but he told me to wait a little bit more. So I just waited, and 20 minutes later, he didn't come out. There was just silence in the bathroom. After 30 minutes, well, Dan decided that he'd check the bathroom. However, having a bad feeling, I went along with him just to be sure that nothing happened to him. "Hey, is everything all right?" I knocked at the door at the bathroom, but there was no response. I repeated the actions, but this time I knocked louder and yelled. Dan told me to wait a little longer, but I refused. I pressed on the handle of the door, expecting it to be locked, but to my surprise, it wasn't. I couldn't believe what I saw in front of me. To my horror, there was blood splattered on the floor everywhere, and the bathtub was filled up with a red liquid, as well with a lifeless body in it. The smell of blood filled the bathroom, and I wondered how I couldn't smell that outside. I told Dan to call 911 while I went over to the body to check his pulse. But when I got closer to it, I noticed that a razor blade was shoved deep in his neck. He was just dead. After half an hour, the 911 arrived with the cops. They took his body and we had to give our report to the cops. To this day, I became more paranoid about a stranger. Especially, I'm positive that letting a stranger use your bathroom is not safe. And to this day, I became more paranoid.
That sucker got jumped like that because somebody knocked over the door. Only because they knocked over the door. They said, he's someone. Like, what the heck?
Paranoid about a stranger ever.
Man, I see. It could be something happening. Alright, so it's gonna be the last video.
It all started one summer afternoon in August. My best friend Mike invited me to his house. Mike was the type of kid you'd call a nerd. He always got good grades, wore glasses, had freckles, and believed in things like dragons and magic. One of Mike's favorite things to do was performing magic for me. Every time I'd come over, he'd perform magic. But this magic trick, though, would be the one that I'd never forget. When I got to Mike's house, he said, "I have a new magic trick to show you, and it's the best one." He grabbed my hand and we went into the living room where he had a large box in front of his family photo. It was all 4 of his family members in that picture: Mike, Josh, and his mom and dad. The box was about his size so we could fit in it, and his older brother Josh was standing next to it. So I sat down on a couch and Mike started introducing the name of his magic trick. It was called the vanishing. Josh opened the door to the large box where nothing was inside, and Mike walked in. After Josh closed the door again, he then said some weird words and then yelled, "Poof!" Josh slowly opened the box, and Mike was no longer in it. However, I was in the 7th grade, so I was smart enough to know that under the box was a trap door so he could climb down out of it. So I looked down at the bottom of the box, but to my surprise, nothing was there. No door, no secret, no Mike. Just at that moment, my mom called and said that I need to come home right now. I said bye to Josh, grabbed my backpack, and yelled, "Nice trick, Mike. Gotta go." Everything was fine, just until the next day. The next day, Mike...
Not to be lying, I feel like something about to come in his house with that.
Didn't invite me,
Just think about
but I thought of going to his house again. I ran up to his house, stood in front of the door, and rang the doorbell 3 times. His dad came out and said, "Oh, hello. Nice to meet you." He acted like that he'd never seen me before. It was weird, but I asked,
Okay, I had a secret. Okay,
his dad came out and said, "Oh, hello. Nice to meet you." He acted like that he'd never seen me before. It was weird, but I asked, "Good afternoon, sir. Is Mike home?" Then I could see his confused face, and he answered, "Mike? Who is Mike?" I felt stupid at that moment, as if I had come to the wrong house. I then quickly asked, "Your son Mike. You have 2 sons." During explaining the situation, I felt irritated, so I pushed him to the side to get into the living room. "Josh," I said, pointing to the photo, and then my eyes widened. Mike wasn't in the photo. I was pointing to nothing, which would have been where Mike should be standing in that picture. I panicked, and I couldn't believe what was going on here. I then said, "You're your son, Mike. He has good grades, and he's good at magic." Oh, the box. I thought that everyone was playing a prank with me or something, but he looked extremely confused and even terrified. He looked at me as if I was some kind of lunatic. So I ran upstairs to check the box, and I opened the door thinking that I must be dreaming. The room was full of bookshelves and beanbags, all in a circle. It was just a cozy reading room. I was horrified. I kept saying, "No, it can't be," over and over. At that moment, Josh came in the room. I thought, this is the last chance. I quickly took out my phone thinking that I could remind Mike to them by showing selfies that I took with Mike before. However, just when I did, he was in none of the pictures. The one where I gave him a hug, where we went to the other friend's birthday party and took a picture with the clown, nothing was there. It was like he never even existed before. And I felt that moment was like a nightmare. To this day, there is literally no one who remembers Mike in my town. I still can't believe what happened to Mike, but I definitely believe that Mike is real. And he must be somewhere.
Probably imaginary friend he got. Okay, I see how it is. or he realized disappeared. Is it that he had a really disappeared? It's a new story. He made us like right now.
This happened to me last summer. My best friend and I went to Ibiza for a week. Once we checked into our hotel on the first day, we threw our bags in our room and drove our rented car to the nearest supermarket. On our way there, we talked about the hotel, which was located in the very old suburban part of the city. It was really dirty. It just had an overall weird vibe to it. My friend was really bummed out about it, but we agreed that it wasn't going to ruin our excitement for this trip. Later that night, around 3 a.m., after coming back from a club to the area where we stayed, we couldn't find our hotel. We were completely drunk and probably walked around the streets in circles. My friend laughed a lot, stopped, and then pointed at a tall garden fence. Through it, we saw the hotel building. It was right behind the garden, so without putting much thought into it, we tried to climb over the fence. My friend managed to succeed, but I fell and hurt my right leg quite a bit. He helped me up, and we stood in the middle of a bunch of green bushes. "What the?" my friend murmured all of a sudden. I looked up, and there were a bunch of tombstones. We were standing right between two walls, and at the end of the walls there was a small chapel. The door was wide open, and from a distance, we could see that it was full of lit-up candles. I was about to ask my friend why the lights were on, but that drunk idiot suddenly started to laugh and walked toward the chapel with big, awkward steps. Due to my injured leg inside the chapel, I took a few more steps and stopped as I saw his face look completely gray. "What's wrong?" I asked, but he gave me no response. Suddenly, he raised his hand and signaled that I should back off and be quiet. He leaned his face a bit forward, as if he was trying to see something in the room. At that point, I was really scared, so I just took as many steps back as I could while still looking at him. Then, I heard something. The sound of footsteps, maybe 4 or 5 people, was directly in front of him. He immediately turned around and started to sprint as fast as he possibly could while yelling, "Run! Run! Go!" I could hear the footsteps getting closer and closer, and whoever was chasing me was yelling some words in Latin. My friend caught up to me just as he was about to climb the fence. He helped me out and gave me a push forward. The footsteps were still right behind us. However, when we hit the ground on the other side of the fence and looked back between the bars into the green bushes, there was no one to be seen, no one to be heard. As frightened as we were, we glanced in every direction, looking for them, but there was nothing. We then got back on our feet and eventually went back to the hotel. Our legs were shivering. My friend entered the lobby first, and as I was just about to enter too, I looked back at the street we just came from and saw 5 figures standing in the darkness. They wore long black clothes and all stared directly at me. I got scared, so I immediately got in and went up to my room. Our hotel room was located on the 5th floor, so I looked down the window into the streets, but I couldn't see any of the figures. I remained extremely paranoid during the rest of our stay, but we never encountered anything similar. Even to this day, we haven't talked about the incident.
Chill. I'll watch them later. Alright, that's the end of the video. So, what do y'all think? It could be good. If it's good, just hit the like button. Make sure y'all subscribe. Comment down below what was y'all scary video. So, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Always see ya. Peace.